Hi, I'm back with the video on the sponsor of this race. We're going to be looking into that and see that there is a really interesting line of clues here. So in the video about the stars and the planets that have aligned for coronavirus, we've also looked at the fact that Lupus and this wolf picture, this icon, is also a constellation, and it's the wolf constellation. So this constellation is visible in June. So there's something going to happen in June because the sponsor, Lupus, Croesus Lupus, shows himself later in the comic. It says here, Senator Bifidus is on the site answering questions from scribes who've come from every direction to cover the event. Now, again, this is Trump in the media. He's in the media like almost 24/7 kind of thing, and he's always just answering questions like, where are we, how far are we, what's happening, etc., etc. So here they ask him, who's financing this? And he says, well, it's simple. We have a deal with Lupus, the big garum producer. They're supplying the trophies. And then he says here, in return, we've allowed them to display their banners and hand out amphorettas of garum all along the route. So the first time they see this billboard in the comic book is when they're zooming down this shortcut. So here they see this, okay? This guy's face is on a billboard and he's holding an amphoretta of garum. Great, now let me take you to why this is so significant. Towards the end of the race, ASTERIX and OBELIX are now in the lead, very comfortable lead. They hit a signpost and chariot is broken, and all of a sudden coronavirus comes zooming past them. Now as they are ready to call it quits, here comes a chariot with a little guy and two bigger guys that look like bodyguards, and he introduces himself. So here is the first time that this Croesus Lupus, the sponsor that's behind this race, makes himself known. Here we have this constellation of Lupus that's only visible from the north in the month of June, and it's a constellation that's located in the southern hemisphere. This character, and he says, let me introduce myself, Croesus Lupus, the great garum producer. And to cut a long story short, he says it's right here that this nectar is produced, and then he says here, I'm going to make you a deal that you can't resist. He gives them help. In turn, he wants to put their faces on his billboard. So he says here, the right to put my face on his mosaics. Where's the harm in that? It's modern. So now he is behind them. So this tells me that this Lupus character was behind coronavirus until coronavirus was defeated the first time by ASTERIX and OBELIX. And then he saw their potential. So there's this change now that comes, and now he backs them. So let's back up a bit and look at the bigger picture. So here we have the race sponsor. For the first part of the race, he is behind coronavirus, backing him. And here he turns around, and now he's behind ASTERIX and OBELIX, who end up defeating coronavirus. So who is this figure? So here you go and you type into Google Croesus. He was the king of Lydia, a country in Western Asia Minor, and it says here on the right hand side, king of Lydia until he was defeated by Persian King Cyrus. And then it says here, Croesus was renowned for his wealth. Okay, so let's look at that big picture again. In the coronavirus pandemic landscape, when you look at it from afar, you see there's this one prominent figure, renowned for his wealth, that is behind defeating this coronavirus. He's talking about vaccines, and he's been talking about this pandemic for years. And now this whole mess is here, and etc., etc. So this comic book seems to point out that our dear Bill Gates is behind this whole mess, both behind coronavirus and behind the vaccine then. So this thing plays out very well into his hands. If you want to tell me that a tech guy like him, yes, he's got his philanthropical pursuits, but if you want to tell me somebody with that much money, renowned for his wealth, makes these predictions for the past 5 years at least about this coming pandemic, and if you want to tell me that was just all coincidence, then maybe you've got another thing coming. Here it says that this little rich guy is behind coronavirus until it suits him, and then he changes gears and gets behind the solution, the guys that are going to defeat coronavirus. I want to add to this video this part in the comic where it shows England's wheels coming off, the chariot with the lions and the two Englishmen in it. Both of their wheels come off and they are sent careening. And the next scene is this African chariot pulling up wheel to wheel with Asterix and Obelix, and the next moment they come zooming past, and now they are wheel to wheel with the leaders, so they are about to pass coronavirus. These are the Cushites according to the comic book, and it says here, it looks like they're going to overtake the Roman, and it says no, he says here in the next slide, it says here, no, he's swerving in front of them, and so coronavirus takes this sharp left, and you can see this big grin on Basilis's face here. And guess what? He knocks the African chariot out of the race almost, but he sends them flying and they go crashing. So here's this thing that happens to Africa, and we have seen in this corona pandemic that Africa has been largely untouched. Maybe that's what this is all about, that Africa is actually, all things considered, busy triumphing over this coronavirus, and the next moment this mysterious thing happens and corona sends Africa flying. I will see you in the next video.